This is, I really find that Islam is actually one of the most unique religious traditions in the world, because we have this concept of a personal God, just like all the other Abrahamic faiths have. But still, Muslim orthodoxy, which is the Sunni mainstream, has preserved this concept of God's essence being absolutely indescribable. They would say, like, we have quotes from some of the Salaf who would say that whatever image or whatever idea of God that you have in your mind, that's not God. So this kind of an abstract notion of God is very unique to Islam, because all religions over time they move towards anthropomorphism, which is like equating God with human beings. So God has hands, God has face, God has a body, and all religions do that actually with time, even if they don't start with that. But we see that mainstream Islam has developed such a robust theology that prevents this slip towards anthropomorphism. So, how did we want to ask Dr. Hamid? So, how did Islamic philosophy and the general Muslim trend of rationalism, because we can see that they're extremely rational, religious, rational people, how did this Muslim trend of rationalism contribute towards making the biggest schools of Muslim theology, which is the Ashari school and the Maturidi school, which is Muslim orthodoxy? The bulk of the Muslim, Sunni Muslim world is just these two groups. So we want to know, how did Islamic philosophy influence these huge, amazing schools of theology?
Basically, both these schools, Asharites and Maturidians, they have not compromised with the basic tenets of Tawhid to a great extent. Although they have used reason and rationalization about God and when they are explaining Tawhid, but they try to be loyal to the spirit of Quran to a great extent. And as you rightly said, that most of the religions of the world, they have digressed or they have deviated from the path of Tawhid. And either they have compromised with polytheism or pantheism or some such type of henotheism, even in some cases, or monism. But Islam has been so sensitive about Tawhid. And even the philosophers and Mutakallimun, they have kept the concept of God aloof from all such type of polemical discussion, and they have upheld the tenet of Tawheed at all costs. Although there have been divergence in the opinions of different schools like Mu'tazilites and Asharites and Maturidians when they talk about Tawheed or God or his essence or his attributes, but they also tried to uphold that basic tenets of Tawheed in abstraction. And they have talked about God, for example, when we talk about Mu'tazilites. So Mu'tazilites have talked about God that he is one. As I mentioned already, they were known as people of Tawheed and Adl, because they laid such emphasis on Tawheed. Even they said that God has no qualities which are separate from his essence. So his qualities are part of his essence. These are his manifestation of his essence. These are not separate from his essence. Because if we believe that God's qualities are separate from his essence, then we have to believe that God's qualities are existing from very beginning, from all eternity. And then we have to believe in two things. One is God's essence, second is God's attributes. And that will be again the secret of Tawhid, because God is unique, God is one. So when we believe that his qualities were also coexisting with God, that will be Ta'dud Qudma, coexistence of the eternals, which will be against the spirit of Tawhid. Although they were mistaken there, they should have not talked like that, because they were later objected by Asharites, that they said that we are just taking God as humans. God's qualities are totally different. Mukhalifatan lil hawadis. And these are not like the qualities of the creatures. God's qualities are totally different from human qualities. And then they say, mukhalifatan lil hawadis, which are totally different from the creators. And secondly, bila tajbih wala kaif, bila kaif wala tajbih, that the qualities of God can't be just made an analogy of. We can't give any analogy about the qualities of God. So, for example, Asharites would say, God has face, God has hand, because these terms have been used by the Quran. But what face God has, we don't know what is the meaning of face. Although Muslims would say face means God is attentive, and they will say hand of God means power. Settling on the throne, Subastawa al-Arsh. He settled on the throne means that he has power on everything in the universe. Or kursi means that God has control of the universe. So we have to give the figurative meaning of these terms which have been mentioned in the Quran, because there is every danger of anthropomorphism, the corporeality. Like for example, when we think that God has hand, it will just make us to think that God has hand like creatures, and that will be against the spirit of Tawhid. But Asharites would say God has head, but bila kayfa wala tajbi. We don't know what type of head Allah has, what type of face Allah has, what type of such other type of human attributes Allah has. But Muslims would say, if we believe in God's settling on the throne, there will be two implications. One will be jahat wal jism. For settling on throne, we need body and we need direction. Then we are determining God. But God should not be determined by anything. But Asharites would say the meaning of settling on the throne, we have to believe like Imam Malik said. He said, al-istiwa ma'lumun. We know how to sit or settle. Wal kafiyatu majhulun, but we don't know how God sits. Wal imanu bihi wajib, but we have to believe in this. Was sawal anu bidah. But to ask a question about his settling on the throne is innovation. So, bila kaifa wala tajbi. We do know how God sits, but he sits because he has said it. So we have to, these are the mutashabiyat. These are the allegorical verses. These are not the categorical verses. So we have to believe because Quran has mentioned, Hadith has mentioned. So whatever has come from Quran, we have to believe kullu min indallah. Everything is from Allah. And there are several verses of the Quran which are to be believed. And there are several verses which are to be acted upon. As you said rightly, these may be supernatural, but these are not supra-rational and supernatural. But these are not anti-reason at all. As Anwar Shaikh Kashmiri would also said, there are several things in Islam which may be above reason, but not anti-reason. And for example, we have mutashabihat. There have been scholars like Sayyuti. In his book, Al-Itiqan fi Ulum al-Quran, he has defined mutashabihat verses from different angles, from the linguistic angle. He said several verses of the Quran which are mutashabihat, they have literal aspect of mutashabihat, tashabuh. And when that literal aspect is defined, then those don't remain like that. Their meaning becomes clear. And there can be several verses which can be understood with the passage of time, because Quran is for all times to come. If everything has been said at one go, then how other things could be unfolded with the passage of time? Several things about Quranic verses will be revealed only after death. That is on the day of judgment. Several things we can understand those. As Ghazali would say, there are several matters which can be decided only by revelation, which cannot be understood by reason, because there are four judges. One is the judge of sense perception. Several things we understand through our sense perception. But there are several things which we can understand through our reason. But there still remain many things which we can understand through only our intuition. And there are still many things which we can understand only through the scale, on the scale of revelation. So we can't use only one scale for knowing each and everything or measuring each and everything. In this way, Muslim philosophers, theologians, and Mutakallimun, they have provided many arguments for the unity of God, for the Tawhid of God, for the qualities of God, and for such other matters. Alhamdulillah, all of them have tried to keep God's qualities and God's essence, above all limitations. And they did not make God like humans, as many religions have done. And that anthropomorphism has taken place, and corporeality of God and other such type of things were believed by people. And then pantheism, polytheism, henotheism, and monism, such type of theories were brought forth in order to show that God is totally, Nozbillah, his qualities are denied. Sometimes only his essence, Zat, is being established at the cost of his quality. Sometimes only his qualities are being mentioned, but his Zat is lost. And that is Sagun Brahm and Nirgun Brahm. Or either he is qualified or he is unqualified. And then such type of, theories have produced by different type of scholars, even in Christianity. In the beginning, there was word. God was with word, and God was word. They said that word becoming flesh at a particular time. And then they said that word was Jesus Christ. And then they said 1 in 3 and 3 in 1. And then they compromised with the doctrine of Tawhid. And it has been said, La wala taqulu salasa intahu. Don't say 3. Don't say Trinity. Stop. So because God is only 1, He is not 3. Or He is not 3 in 1, 1 in 3. Because that just has been denounced by Quran. And in the other ways also, nothing is like Allah. As has been said in the Upanishads, niti niti. He is not like that, he is not like this. But at other place, he is being defined like this and that. Srivakitu and others, and I will not go in details. So in this way, we find in the religions of the world, this abstractness about God has lost its meaning. And God has been just identified with so many other things also, with the creatures. And sometimes he has been said that there everything is God. Pantheism, and such type of philosophies have been just provided by scholars. But Muslim philosophers, to a great extent, they have tried to keep the Tawhid intact in its purity, and in their effort to make God immune from all the limitations humans have or the creatures have. So this argument has been kept alive by Muslim philosophers and Mutakallimun, and for that reason this metaphysics was known as Ilahiyat. Mostly it was discussing qualities of God, attributes of God, essence of God, and rights of God.
Perfect, mashallah. That's very nice, and I really want like our viewers to appreciate that so much work has gone into developing this advanced tradition. All of the material that we had, all of the sciences or the theology or the metaphysics that we had in the Muslim world were also got transferred to the Christian world, and they did, get influenced by that. They did get influenced by that. But the way it was preserved in the Muslim world and the central tenets of Islam have been uncompromised for centuries. And there has been no compromise, which is unparalleled. It's almost like a miracle, and you can read the history of religions. Within few 100 or 200 years, you see a dilution of the central ideas. I'm not even talking about the peripheral ideas. Even the central doctrines of Buddhism, within 1 century, within 2 centuries, they were all diluted, or even Christianity, Judaism. But what we see in Islam is this unparalleled preservation of central tenets of Tawhid, of the place of the Prophet, done by these scholars, these theologians, who were in many, many cases, you could call them very rational. You can't call them rationalists because they knew the reason of the place of reason, but they were extremely rational.